I'm not going to give you our strategy, but all I can say is when I said to him, you need to let my client finish speaking, he was cutting him off every time there was good testimony, every time there was testimony that explained how ridiculous this is. And you have to understand, real estate is not simple. Real estate is complicated, but this is the real estate icon type. I mean, who's bigger than Donald Trump? And you sit there and you're trying to challenge him. It's not going to work. He's going to explain it to you, but he didn't like the explanations. He was cutting him off. And I said, Your Honor, you need to let him speak. This is what trials are for. Let my client speak. And the judge said, I'm not here to hear him speak. And I can be honest with you, as I heard those words, I said, I just looked at the screen. I said, okay, it's on the record. And you know, as a lawyer, you have strategy and you take things, those I'll keep to myself, but we'll be proceeding as we should.
That was Alina Habba, Donald Trump's lawyer. She represents him in connection with the New York Attorney General's civil fraud case, currently in its 6th week of trial. And she's talking about Donald Trump's testimony. Well, sort of. I mean, she is just completely lying about what went down, but I wouldn't expect less from a MAGA lawyer. Make attorneys get attorneys. And there, Alina Habba saying that on cross-examination, Donald Trump was answering the questions perfectly. And out of nowhere, Judge Engoron said, I don't want to listen to you. I don't want to hear what you have to say. That's not what happened. Let me explain what happened and let me debunk what Alina Habba said very easily. I'm Ben Meiselas. This is the MeidasTouch Network, where facts actually matter. So Donald Trump was cross-examined yesterday. On cross-examination, you get asked a series of questions by the opposing lawyer. Oftentimes, they're yes or no questions that require yes or no answers. And oftentimes, you'll be asked other questions that are very clear and concise and that require responsive answers. And if you start rambling about things that have nothing to do with the questions that are being asked, the way that works is your answers would be stricken as non-responsive. So as Donald Trump would ramble about things that were not responsive to the questions that he was being asked by the New York Attorney General, the judge would continue to admonish him, answer the question, answer the question, answer the question. And then Alina Habba at one point stood up and said, Judge, he's doing a great job. Let him speak. Let him say whatever he wants to say. You have to hear his stories. To which Judge Engoron said, I'm not here to listen to him. I am here to listen to the answers to the questions he is being asked. Specifically, Engoron said, I'm here to listen to the answers to the questions. This is not a therapy session. The court doesn't just listen to everybody ranting and raving. In a court of law, there are rules of evidence and admissible evidence. You know, one of the things that's not getting a lot of coverage, and one of the things Alina Habba was complaining about in court, is Donald Trump brought with him like a note that he had written before he arrived in court, and he wanted to read from his notes, and he said, I have something, I'd like to read it right now. And the judge says, no, I don't want to hear that. That's not the way this works in a court. You don't write yourself notes and get to read from it. You answer the questions on cross-examination. And let me just say this kind of debunks everything she says very, very easily. It's not like all you have in a trial is cross-examination, right? It's not like the New York Attorney General cross-examines and they get to ask their questions, and then Donald Trump never gets to have another word again. You know what happens after that? Direct examination of Donald Trump. There are rules of the way a court works, and fundamentally what these MAGA lawyers want to do is just rip apart our system. So what actually could have happened as soon as the cross-examination was over and Judge Engoron looked at Alina Habba and said, would you like to ask your client questions? Most lawyers in that situation, unless they're planning to recall him at a later date, which I don't think Alina Habba and the Trump lawyers are going to do, you thought you had a great case and you thought the judge isn't listening to you, well, then what you do is you then say, yes, we have some questions for our client. And then you do this. You say, Mr. Trump, On cross-examination, you were asked a yes or no question about this portion of the statement of financials. Can you explain how you prepared that? And then your client goes through it and your client says, yes, the way I went through it, I wasn't able to sufficiently answer it on the yes or no. Here's the levels of diligence that I did. Okay, well, Mr. Trump, you were asked on cross-examination this question. What is your response? You were cut off because you were only given a yes or no. What was your response that you were going to give? Or tell me what you were going to, and then you let your client, you don't lead your client on direct, but you ask your client questions to allow them to enhance the record, add the record. Mr. Trump, you were talking about lollipops. You see, one of the things Trump mentioned was lollipops. And a lollipop lease. What's a lollipop lease? And explain to me, why is a lollipop lease relevant to 40 Wall Street? And why is that important in your view to your statement of financial conditions? And can you explain why that lease is more valuable than what the statement of financial conditions says? And when you say that the statement of financial conditions are less valuable, let's go item by item. Can you explain? That's how you would do it. Okay? And you'd go one by one. If you were trying to introduce the facts and evidence. She had the opportunity to do that yesterday, or Chris Keiss, or one of the lawyers. But instead, and this to me is where we have to call this out together, and that's why I think it's so important that you share this channel, is because I think that where someone like Alina Habba is very predatory on is people's lack of knowledge about the court system. And so, she'll go out, and this really isn't the way lawyers practiced before. It's a very strange thing and disgraceful thing to me to watch lawyers just rip apart and shred our system. I mean, in the past, don't get me wrong, lawyers spin their cases however they want to, but fundamentally they respect that there's cross-examination, direct examination, evidence, admissible evidence, objections, rulings, and the Trump lawyers just fundamentally mischaracterize the proceedings, and then they try to prey on the disparity of information when it's like, why didn't you ask your client the questions? Why didn't you ask for clarity? Rather than standing up during the New York Attorney General's cross-examination and saying, you have to listen to him. Why don't you wait your turn, like all lawyers do in courtrooms across the country every single freaking day, and then you get to go after that lawyer and you get to ask your client questions. Why didn't you ask your client any questions if your client's so great and so powerful and real estate so complicated? Then go through the complicatedness of it. Go through how complicated it is with your client on the stand. But you didn't do that. So to me, that's a simple point right there. Instead, you went out and you whined that the judge yelled at you. Here, play the clip.
You have a right to hire a lawyer who can stand up and say something when they see something wrong. But I was told to sit down today. I was yelled at. And I've had a judge who is unhinged slamming a table. Let me be very clear. I don't tolerate that in my life. I'm not going to tolerate it here. And you know what? You shouldn't either.
And then you also said that, well, why am I even being paid? Play the clip.
I'm not here to hear what he has to say. Then why exactly am I being paid as an attorney? And why exactly are taxpayer dollars being used in this courtroom? The answer is very clear. Because Miss James wants to stand right here like she did this morning and call my client a liar.
And here's the thing with Alina Habba and all these MAGA lawyers also, they always make it's them, it's me, it's I, it's me. And, Alina Habba sitting there at trial, basically she made her laptop into a billboard for her law firm. You can't, take a look at this. You can't make this stuff up, folks. And it's just like, what in the world is going on here? This is some just bizarre stuff. And that's where I say this isn't a Democrat thing or a Republican thing or an independent. This shouldn't be any of that. We all as Americans should just look at Alina Habba's incompetence and Trump's incompetence and their lack of honesty and integrity and just be like, yeah, we're not okay with that. I don't care what political part, that's not okay behavior. Anyway, tell me what you think in the comments. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers. Thanks to your support. Have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.